You want to buy a camera, but you don't know what camera to buy. In this video, I'm gonna break it down for you. I'm gonna explain to you exactly what camera to buy, why to buy that camera, and how much you should be spending on a camera. So the main reason to buy a camera is to be able to, manipulate the manual settings for you to get the best possible picture, right? You don't necessarily need a DSLR to do that. You can access the manual settings of your phone through a couple of apps. I'm going to give you 2 apps which will allow you to alter the manual settings in your phone for you to be able to get the right settings and get the right picture. This video is not going to be about which settings to use. That's the disclaimer. I'm not going to talk about settings in this video at all. It's basically just going to be about the hardware, the equipment, the cameras. Yeah? So number 1, if you have no budget, you need to use your phone, and you can get specific apps to get the best out of your phone's camera. App number 1 is the Lightroom app. What it allows you to do, it allows you to access things like the shutter speed, things like the ISO, and if you have a camera that has different apertures, you can access different apertures of your camera as well. So that's number 1, the Lightroom app, which will allow you to access the settings of your camera, like the back-end settings of your camera for you to get the best possible image. That's for photos, right? The second app is more for videos. It's called Filmic Pro, and it allows you to access, again, the same thing, different settings that your camera app wouldn't allow you to access. It will help you to get the best possible image that your camera on your phone can produce for you. If you do have a budget, let's say something between 200 to 300 pounds, then you can probably get a very good DSLR, but you'd probably have to go down the second-hand route. So the cameras I'd recommend for the 200 pounds to 300 pounds mark is number 1, the Canon 600D and 650D, 700D. Those 3 cameras are pretty much the same thing. They do the same thing. Obviously, the ones with the higher numbers are the newer versions of that camera. So if you can get your hands on the newer version of those cameras, it's even better for you. An alternative is Nikon. I think they do something called the Nikon D5100, which is the equivalent to the Canon 600D. These are entry-level DSLRs, but they offer you the opportunity to take advantage of all the manual settings, which means you can set up the camera to get the best possible image for you. When you pay between 200 and 300 pounds, you'll get the lens and the camera, so you don't need to worry about going out and spending more money on a lens. You get the kit lens and you can get straight into it. You can start shooting straight away. Number 2, if you have a price range of between 300 pounds and 500 pounds, I recommend the following cameras, yeah? The Canon 800D or the Nikon D5600. So these cameras are just the upgrade of the previous cameras I just spoke about. They offer pretty much all the same features, just slightly better. I mentioned the Canon 600D in the first point, and in this point, I'm mentioning the Canon 800D. It's a bigger number and it's a better camera because it's a newer version of the same camera. The feature differences aren't that great, so you probably get, well, not probably, you definitely get better image quality. You'd get better autofocus features. So for example, if the camera's on a tripod and you're recording yourself, if you walk towards the camera, it will track you. If you walk back, it will track you. It will just keep you in focus all the time. So you never need to worry about that. So if I'm being honest, you don't necessarily need to spend that much more money. You can just get the older version if the new features don't really mean so much to you. For me personally, I'd recommend you get the newer one if you can spend the money, but if you can't, just go backwards a step. The camera that I personally really recommend in this price range is a new camera called the Canon M50, right? So it's very similar to the previous cameras I've just mentioned, but it's a mirrorless camera. So which means it's a lot smaller. You can do your vlogging stuff with it. You can carry it anywhere you want. It does very, very, very good autofocus for people that are interested in video. Like the autofocus is on par with the £1,000 cameras, £1,500 cameras, and it's only £400. You get it? You can get it for £400, probably like £450, £500 on eBay. So I'd personally recommend the Canon M50. If you have a budget between £500 to £1,000, I would personally get the Canon EOS RP or the Sony A6500. These are both mirrorless cameras, which means they're smaller, they're more compact, you can carry them anywhere you want, and they offer all the same great qualities of the big chunky DSLR cameras. They offer excellent image quality. They all shoot in RAW, so when you're editing, you can do more of the image. They're also very good with low light, especially the Sony camera. You don't need to have a bright area or a bright situation for you to get very good images from a Sony camera, especially the Sony A6500. Autofocus, 10 out of 10. It's just overall a very good camera for that price range, and it does everything that all the cameras from the previous price ranges do, but just better. If this is your budget, I recommend you go for these two cameras. I don't know what the Nikon counterpart is, so I'm not gonna recommend one. So finally, we come to point number 4. If you have a budget of between £1,000 to £1,500, then you probably wanna get these two cameras, the Sony A7iii III or the Canon EOS R. Those two cameras within that budget are the best, and I'll tell you why. So these cameras offer everything that the previous cameras offer, but they come with slight upgrades. So I'll give you an example. Things like you get better battery life. That means you can shoot for longer. You can just keep shooting in comparison to the previous cameras. You get a higher resolution image. So that means your images will be slightly sharper than the images of the predecessor cameras. Your camera will be weather sealed. That means if you went out and it started raining, you'll feel confident in the fact that the rain isn't gonna damage your camera because the camera or the lens be weather sealed. And obviously the last point being, these cameras generally tend to be better in low light. So as I explained before, if you're in a darker situation, you'll be more likely to get a better image from these cameras than the predecessor cameras or the previous cameras. If you're looking for a slightly more expensive camera, then this probably isn't the video for you, as this video is meant more for amateurs and people that are starting out, people that just want to get a camera and just get straight into the game. So those are the top 3 cameras that I recommend. Now, if we combine everything with price, specs, literally everything that I've spoken about in this video, the camera that I would recommend for anybody who just hasn't got a budget, they just want to go and spend some money on a decent camera, is the Canon M50. If you can buy that camera with a lens, the kit lens, then you would have received the best value for money right now, in my opinion. So I recommend Canon M50. That's about £400 to £500, and you'll get a sick camera. Like, it's comparable to the camera that I'm currently shooting on now. So if you like the quality of this camera, you'd get the same results from a camera that's half the price at £400 to £500. So I recommend the Canon M50. So when it comes to selecting the brand of camera to buy, I don't like to tell people buy this brand, buy that brand, because they're all very similar. They all do pretty much the same thing. It's like the whole Apple and Android thing, you know, it's about what you like, but at the end of the day, they all do the same thing. The advice I give in that regard is, if your friends all have that camera, then I'd recommend also buying the same camera, because you can do things like borrow lenses, you can borrow batteries when you're out shooting together, you know, you can interchange stuff. Whereas if everyone's got different brands, then it's going to be difficult. You have to buy your own lenses, you have to buy your own batteries, you have to, in some cases, you have to buy your own memory cards. I definitely recommend finding out what people around you already have, people that you have access to, find out what they already have and follow their purchase pattern in terms of the brand that they're going for. It's like I was chatting to my friend recently and I was explaining to him that the only reason why I bought a PlayStation is because all the man them have a PlayStation and I want to be able to play against everyone online. So I'm going to, of course, go out and buy a PlayStation. I'm not going to buy an Xbox. So that's the rationale behind it. That is my personal reason as to why I'd purchase one brand over another. Not that certain brands are better than others, you know. You can find a good Canon camera and you can find a very shit Canon camera. Same with every other brand. When it comes to like photography, each camera does produce a certain kind of look. So I'd recommend going to the shop, playing around with all the different cameras, take some pictures and see which one produces the look that you like. So having explained all the different cameras that I'd recommend for you to buy, you have to understand that it's not only the camera that helps you achieve the best quality image. There are other factors which help people get these great pictures that you see on Instagram or you see on these people's websites. Things like the flash, the lens matters, the composition of the picture. There are different factors that affect a picture to make it a great picture. So I hope you derived some value or you got some value out of the information I provided in this video. If you're still not sure what camera to buy, feel free to message me. As usual, if you like this kind of content, please just subscribe. And if you know someone else that will like the information that you've just heard in this video, just share the video, man. Just send it to them and let them check out the video. If they have any questions, as I said, comment below or message me directly, email or Instagram. Thank you.